Welcome, everybody. Dr. Greg is back with the state of the market for 2024. So what the heck happened in 2024 in the Star Wars CCG market? We're going to talk about Q1 through Q4 of last year, as well as thinking about what does this mean for 2025, which I'm sure is the question in everybody's mind. Who cares about this stuff? So, Greg, it's always fun to have you on, man. It's a blast.
I appreciate that, Matt. I really like doing these videos. I like the yearly review one too, because we get to do a bit of a deeper dive than we do with the quarterly videos, and I get to show off more charts, which I always enjoy.
We got charts, man. We're ready to go this year.
If you're watching this and you're into charts, you're gonna be happy.
my chart fetish is being satisfied.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, what are we going to talk about first here? I think maybe where things were at kind of a macro level in 2024.
Yeah. So the first set of slide is really just looking at 2024. And what you see here, basically, there were about 450 total sets sold on eBay. So for, just to remind everyone, this is all coming from eBay data. I'm not tracking private sales or storefronts or anything like that. So on eBay over the last year, about a total of 450 sets were sold, totaling for about $120,000 in set sales. And if you look at the data, there was a bit of a decrease throughout the year in terms of the sales frequency. Although looking at previous years, that's pretty standard. Like each year, the first half of the year starts out sort of very strong in terms of numbers of sets sold, and then that comes down slowly over the course of the year. So what you're seeing in the top chart is basically like in line with what we see every year. Although I will actually say the drop in Q4 this year was a bit lower than usual. And then looking at terms of the overall value of what I call a kind of mini master set. So that's all the black border sets, no AI, no foils, no white border. Just looking at those sets, you'll see that actually the prices slowly increased steadily, throughout the year. So it was a good year in terms of the market in that regard.
So I'll also just say, having done this for I think 3 or 4 years now, it seems like that mini master set has been around 4,000 to 4,500 for like 3 years. Maybe it dipped a little higher or something, but it seems like kind of steady. That's roughly where it's at. 4,000 to 5,000, probably in the lower end of that range for like a
I think you hit the nail on the head. You'll see that in a slide, 3 or 4 in the future. No, but I think you're right. So we can come back to sort of comparing it, but this is sort of where we are this year. The year started, and it's gone up a couple $100, the value of that little mini master set. Looking at some more details, sort of breaking that down. So if you look at this by set, of those 450 sets sold, the Premier is the highest selling set. Then A New Hope, Dagobah, Cloud City, Jabba's Palace, all of those seem to sell, all of those sold between 40 and 50-ish sets throughout the year. It was a particularly good year for Dagobah, by the way, and I don't really know why, but Dagobah tends to lag behind these other sets, but this year was really strong. And the sets that sell in the lowest numbers is not really surprising. Coruscant Theed, the foil sets, other than Death Star 2, these are the most expensive sets, so it's not surprising to see them sell in these numbers. And then, so that's the numbers. In terms of, but actually, question for you, Matt. I don't know, Hoth is odd to me. Like it's weird to me that like Premier through Jabba's Palace all sells so high, but Hoth is so low with respect to the other ones. Do you have any thoughts there?
I think Hoth is kind of undervalued, and I also just wonder, like looking at that January, December, so the total sales volume going down, I'm wondering if just some big sellers have kind of slowly exited the market. I feel like there was like a pretty like ready like cottage industry of people that would like buy like complete sets and sell them on eBay, like the Beefreds, the Richies, like these guys that were like selling sets every Sunday for like years, and it seems like maybe their volume has slowed down a little bit, perhaps.
Well, so the thing I mentioned about this chart that we're now looking at the top, where like the frequency of set sales goes down over the year, I mentioned that happens every year. So if you look at 2023, it starts really strong, and then around the summer starts going down, and then picks up again in January, February, March, and that's happened for the last like 3 or 4 years in a row.
I mean, I do
interestingly,
think
right?
winter's like the best time for hobbies, right? It's just like
Yeah,
people are
yeah.
stuck. It's cold. You can't go outside. What a better activity on a Saturday than to like sit and organize your stuff, or like, frankly, clean your house and sell that extra set that you bought 2 years ago. When we mentioned in a
Yeah.
previous data point. I would love to see like the number of people, like the size of the market. Like, is it just the same 10 guys buying and then selling sets to each other? But
I can't imagine. I mean, just given how steady it's. I mean, this is like these are, and I'll get to the sort of year-over-year slides in a few minutes. But the numbers are so steady. I have to imagine it's a larger pool than just those 10. But yeah, anyway, this was interesting to me. Why Hoff sells at lower numbers? I know it's more expensive than A New Hope, Dagobah, Cloud City, Jabba's Palace. So it could just
I'm
be
wondering if it's like
price. But
kind of an availability thing as well. Like it feels like I don't know. Hoth is like one set where I'm like, oh, I would hold a Hoth set kind of thing. Whereas like
yeah,
Dagger, I'm
it
like,
is. It's a pretty set.
yeah, it's cool. It's thematic. I think it's the most
Cool.
sort of like
Yeah.
feel good kind of balance
Hmm.
set, as far as the old sets. But Dagobah's a surprise. It feels like that's like one set I just can't even seem to look at like all the red cards.
Dagobah had a banner year for whatever reason. Um, anyway, so that's the numbers of sets. If you're looking at the sort of total amount spent on each set over the last year, Premier, just given how many of those sets sell and that it sells for in the 200 range, over 12K was spent on Premier, over 10K even was spent on DS2, even though far fewer DS2 sets are sold, right? When it's sitting around $700, pulls in some money. Special edition brought in about $8,000 on eBay. Then, A New Hope, Hoff, Dagobah, Coruscant brought in around 7K. Endor, Ref 3 Premium and the Tourney foil set brought in about 6K. That Tourney foil set, that's two sales, right? 4K on Cloud City, Jabba's Palace, and the Reflections foil sets, and then 3K on Tatooine Theed and Ref 2 Premium. But so Premier still takes in the most money of all the sets.
Some guy was just like, I just got $13,000 from selling my car. I need to buy
I'm buying Premiere
$13,000.
sets all year. So that's looking at the numbers over the last year. Now starting to move into thinking about this year in comparison to other years. This is my data on total number of sets sold over the last 5 years, which interestingly, has remained roughly consistent other than 2021, where just this insane number of sets were sold, right? 2021 is just kind of monstrous at 830 compared to 2020 and 2022, which were both sitting at 500. In the last 2 years in the 450 range, which is a little bit of a drop, but it's a roughly straight line other than that 2021 year.
Yeah, 2021 was sort of the big year for frankly, all stupid things. It's like the GameStop year, the AMC stock, it was like a
Yeah,
year of
yeah, yeah.
memes. So I think
It,
every market went insane in 2021.
And
Uh,
it had 2021 was like enough into the pandemic that people had the time to like find all those cards and sort through all those cards and so on. Like
yeah,
it's
because
interesting how that kind of lagged in terms of that huge increase.
2020 was kind of like we'll be back at work in 8 weeks, right? That was the vibe. And
Yeah. Okay,
like,
fair. Yeah,
no,
that's right.
like this
We
is here to
were
stay.
Yeah, we were
Telework.
so naive. But so anyway, 2024 was a very, very slight drop in terms of the total number of sets sold from 2023, which was a slight drop from 2022. But again, we're looking at roughly a line other than 2021. And then in terms of the value, I think you had a pretty good read, right, on the last 4 years. I mean, looking at where we are now compared to 2019, certainly that mini master set, all the black border sets, no AI, no foils, is about 100% increase from where it was pre-pandemic prices. And then you can see the way it kind of slowly went up in the first year or two of the pandemic. It peaked in 2022 at 4,400. We had a drop last year of about 10%, and then an increase this year of about 10% from last year. And if you see like this, the mini master set is actually at the highest consistent average it's ever been, right? Even higher than the 2022 peak.
Long live Star Wars CCG, man. But it's like
I know, right? I was not expecting this when I was
I maybe have a little bit of a
tabulating
hypothesis
all the
here
data.
with like I think higher set volumes tend to lead to lower prices and also underpriced stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
like 2021, there were some insane prices out there. I remember like Coruscant being $900 a set or something, right? And I think it was just there was stuff that was severely underpriced because people found their stuff, and so as well as overpriced. And so, anyways, I think there's just like outliers that might skew data in 2021.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff happening, but notice the peak didn't really happen until 2022, and that's actually because if we dug into the year-over-year data, the episode 1 sets peaked much later than the OT sets. So if you're in 2021, that number you're seeing is kind of before Coruscant and Theed really blew up. I think. And then in 2022, those set, or they were starting to blow up. And doing this by like calendar year, obviously like obfuscates some like other trends that might happen in the middle of the year or something like that. But anyway, I think the point is those episode 1 sets lagged a little bit. But looking at sorry, Matt, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, it tracks kind of like a really natural progression where like you start with premiere and then you like you move up, and the episode 1 stuff maybe most people didn't have as kids or as young adults or whatever, and like you eventually graduate to it. You like justify the $700 you just spent on one.
That's right. Yeah. If you look at the data, it really does look like kind of premiere through special edition peaked early, and then or premiere through Java's Palace, then special edition, Endor and Death Star, then the episode 1s, then the foils. It very much sort of, you could see the way people were getting back into collecting. Which was kind of fun from a data standpoint. In terms of what explains, by the way, the increase this last year, looking at the breakdown by set, it was really a good year for sets. Pretty much everything increased, except for Premiere, Death Star 2, Reflections 2 and 3 Premium, which were within 5%. So actually, Premiere, Reflection, I think Reflections 2 and 3 are up under 5%, and Premiere and Death Star 2 were down under 5%. Everything else was up. And the ones I've highlighted here were up over 20% this year. So A New Hope, Special Edition Endor, Coruscant and Theed were all up between 20 and 30% this year. Coruscant and Theed in particular had a pretty bad year last year, so they've really bounced back this year.
Yeah, it seemed like I mean, the singles for Coruscant, for a while were just, it's like 10 singles were worth the entire cost of the set. And
yeah. I think we talked about this in some of our videos last year, that the value of like 10 big singles in Coruscant and Theed were the price of the whole set, and that's because they really took a hit last year, and now they've bounced back, and so that is less true than it was before. So that's so good year for sets, for these black border sets. Now moving on to what we might call the full master set, although I know there's so much debate over what counts as a master set. So what this is all English language black border sets, white border sets, and foil sets, including the AI. This doesn't include Japanese. It doesn't include promo cards. This is sort of what this is why I didn't even put the label of master set. Looking at this, we're up about 200% of where we were pre-pandemic prices. About 5,000 for this in 2019. Again, a steady increase up through 2022, a drop in 2023, and then an increase in 2024. And then, obviously, like the fact that this is 200% increase instead of the 100% increase you see in the mini master set really is explained by that massive increase in the foil sets over these years.
Particularly the tournament foil set. And by the way, for folks listening, all the data we're referencing is in the show notes. So if you want to check this out and peruse on your own, please check out that link to the Google Sheets there. Yeah, I mean, I think that this is also just becoming much like the broader CCG market. There's just the ultra premium stuff that everybody's chasing, whether that's the Imperial class Star Destroyer foil or the serialized rings or what in magic. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like everybody's chasing the enchanted, the extra rare weird foil promo that no one knew existed, and everything else is just kind of like static. I think like that's where the collecting market's going, is the ultra premium stuff, and then everything else is just kind of like, yeah, it exists, people buy it, but like not chasing it actively.
Yeah.
I
And
say this
you know,
as
and
someone who's
we've
looking for an Imperial class Star Destroyer foil myself, right? I'm like, yeah, well,
if anyone's watching,
yeah.
Matt is in need. Actually, the thing you said about the tournament foil, I mean, certainly tournament foils have gone up a lot, but they actually lagged even more behind the rest of the foil sets. So, the foil sets now, and we'll get to this data, are down from their peaks. But they peaked at, Ref 3 was at 3K ish, and Ref 2 foil was at 2K ish, and that was from the $400 or $500 that they were selling for pre-pandemic. So they went up a ton, and the tournament foil set actually didn't really go up as significantly until 2023, which explains a few weird things in the data that I'll get to. But anyway, so master set total, we're looking at around 14.5K, which is close to its peak in 2022. And again, that's all of the English language black border, white border, and foil sets. This includes AI. One or two things I just want to point out that is sort of interesting about this data. So the first thing is, hold on, I have to, whoops, okay, is you might be wondering, well, why was 2024, if you look at the sort of mini master set, 2024 is at the peak, it did better than it did in 2022. Whereas if you look at the full master set, we're actually a few $100s below the peak in 2022. So why was the master set not more in 2024, given that the mini master set was where it was? And part of that explanation is that AIs and Coruscant and Theed and even white border sets are kind of a little bit down from their 2022 highs. But the big explanation is actually this, which is that comparing the 2024 prices of the foil sets to their 2022 prices, Ref 1 foil is roughly even, sitting at around $500. But Ref 2 foil and Ref 3 foil over the last 2 years have taken a huge hit. So I mentioned Ref 2 foil peaked not at 2K, but close to 2K. That includes the box toppers. And Ref 3 foils peaked at close to 3K. And both of those, Ref 2 foil over in 2024, the average was around 1,100. For Ref 3, it was around 2,300. So, those have taken a real big hit from their peaks.
I actually attribute that a lot to the what is the super rare and very rare foils essentially becoming almost worthless for Ref 1 and Ref 2. Right? Like no one, unless it's the ultra rares or a few like the Outer Rim Scout or something interesting, like no one really wants random super curled red card. Like even for 50 cents, you buy. I'm trying to think, whatever, reflections or something, like just like random red card that's like not very I mean, they're useful cards, but like they're just so plentiful, right? And
so it feels I think that's very much true of Ref 1, and I think that's also true of Ref 2. It seems less true, and you didn't mention Ref 3, but that seems less true of Ref 3, and maybe that's in part why Ref 3 has not gone down as much as Ref 2. But the Ref 3 has a lot of really interesting foils, I think, outside of the ultra rares.
I agree. I mean, I think if you're sitting here and have all the time in the world, there's way more money in selling those as singles than, the Destroyer Droid foils, like $70. You got like Qui-Gon, you got Maul. There's so many like $30, $40 cards in addition to the ultra rares. I think Ref 3 is still pretty cool to collect. I enjoy having a few extra foils randomly. I started collecting Destroyer Droid foils. I have 4 now, which is kind of fun. But it's just, I don't know. It's just a cool looking card.
Well, me and my Force Lightning foil fetish. So, if anyone is watching, I will take your Force Lightning foils in any quantity. Although that's a Ref 2 one. Oh, by the way, so interestingly, right? So you might be thinking here, like, well, given how much these Ref 2 and Ref 3 foil sets lost, which is, they're down from their peaks around, like, let's say, whatever it is, 14 or 1,500 total. How come the total numbers aren't actually down even more? And that's where the tournament foil set comes in. So over these 2 years where Ref 2 and Ref 3 have lost, about, let's say, $700 each or whatever it is, the tournament foil set has gone up over $1,000 over the same period of time, right? Because I mentioned it peaked later. So from 2022 to this year, it's gone up, over 1K in terms of its average sale price. And so that's why that's making up for the lost averages of the Ref 2 and Ref 3 foil sets.
And those values are just anchored by 2 cards, the Curling Corvette and
Yes.
the Imperial class. I mean, the rest of the stuff might be worth. I actually think the Quiggy and Maul foils have plummeted. Not plummeted, but like these are like $200, $150.
Yeah, they are down from their peaks. They are. I'd have to look at the data. I should have maybe included them. They're, let's say, $125 each, something like that. And they kind of fluctuate between $100 to $150, and then the rest of the 24 cards you can buy for under $200, right? So yeah, so like let's say you're looking at 400, at best 500 there, but now your tournament foil set is selling for 3,000, and that's all the Imperial class Star Destroyer foil and the Corvette foil.
Yeah, I think those saw a spike in value because it just dried up. Like for a while, you could find stuff on Wild Thing Games or eBay, and they're just not available. And there's like maybe 10, 15 people that want one because it's a cool, iconic card that maybe want to grade it, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I'd say it's more than 10 or 15 people. Otherwise, I don't think it would be quite at the 2,000.
Yeah, I feel like if I put one for sale on Facebook, for $800, I'd have like 50 DMs, right?
Yes, yeah, immediately. Yeah. RIP to your DMs for an $800 ICSD.
Yeah, which is crazy because it's still like, I'm like, $800 is a lot of money.
It's still quite a lot of money, and at least more than double what it was selling for a few years ago. I mean, Wild Things Games was selling them for like $250 back in the day, and then I think I snagged mine somewhere in the $300 to $400 range when they started going up in the whenever that was. So yeah. Anyway, so this is the explanation for why things have gone down in 2024, and again, that's the tournament foil set that explains why it hasn't gone down more. And then one other thing, looking now, I've got that same full master set totals, but including not just the yearly averages, but now the most recent 3 months average. And notice there's been actually a huge drop in the last quarter of 2024 compared to the overall year, like a significant $800 or whatever this is. And this again is almost entirely explained by the fact that these foil sets have continued to plummet. Not only their 2024 averages, but the last 3 months. Ref 1 foil set has now gone down about 20%, about $100. Ref 2 foil set has continued to go down. The last sale, so I should say my data is like for Ref 2 and Ref 3 is like 1 sale each or something like that in Q4. But $920 for that Ref 2 foil set, $2,000 for that Ref 3 foil set, right? With so few sample sizes, again, it is tough to know whether this is representative, but it's certainly worth keeping an eye on, and it is worth thinking about why, because what's going on here. I mean, you mentioned that potentially it's the rest of those cards are just like people are finding not worth it, and it's just that the ultra rares are the draw. But it's like worth noting at $920 or even under $1,000 for the Ref 2 foil set. I mean, that's the value of the 4 ultra rare foils and like the box toppers and case toppers right there. I mean, that's like already over $920, I think. So it's like you're buying those 8 cards and then getting the other 100 of them for free, basically, if you're paying that for Ref 2.
Yeah, I mean, 918, I don't know if I would maybe snag one. The thing is, I just don't need stuff. Greg, spray me with the spray bottle. I don't need more stuff. Spray me with the spray
fair.
bottle.
I mean, fair. If someone, let me put it this way. If someone was interested in getting a Ref 2 foil set, or even like getting some segment of a Ref 2 foil set, and they're selling for this price, this seems like a really great buy to me, because you can let's say keep everything but the ultra rares and sell the ultra rares and the box toppers, make back all of your money, and you've got 100 foil cards that are like fun, right? Or the other way around, right? So like this seems just like a good buy, and I'm surprised it's not more. And same thing with Ref 3 at 2K, right? I mean, it seems maybe that's not as good a buy at 2K in my mind, but the value of the 4 ultra rare foils is quite high, right? And maybe when we get to the singles, we can talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. The consistency, maybe we'll get into the Ref 3 foils our next slide, so I don't want to spoil anything here.
Yeah, we're not there yet. I'm going to work. Maybe I should have organized this differently, but the next thing we're going to work through is just quickly going through The AI averages. So this is the 9 AI. So now we're done with the sets, moving into looking at the singles. The 9 AI from Coruscant and Theed. These are, I mean, just look at how they blew up. They were like nothing pre-pandemic, $240. They were roughly equivalent. I should say though, in 2019 and 2020, I was only tracking sales of some people who were selling like the complete 9 cards as one set. And then once the values blew up, no one was really doing that anymore. And so then I was tracking the single prices, but still, obviously, they were nowhere close to where they are now. And if you look at it, they've actually remained roughly consistent since they blew up. Once they, in 2021, they've remained roughly consistent over the last 4 years. Coruscant sitting at 1250-ish, and Theed sitting at, 750-ish for the 9 cards.
Yeah, and people might wonder why Theed lags behind here. There's a pretty simple solution. One, Theed is way less cool. And two, Theed randomly was 1 in 3. There's, I don't know, it was a printing error or an intentional thing, but they're a little more common than the Coruscant ones, which were 1 in 4.
Yeah, that's
there
right.
Is an
each of
there.
Yes, right. Relative to their non-AI counterparts, they're more frequent in Theed than they are in Coruscant.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where we're sitting. Looking at some of the, let me skip that. Looking at the individual prices for Coruscant, it looks like Queen Amidala Rune Naboo and Darth Maul Young Apprentice are really driving the value of that. Both of those are. Even with the drop they've had in the last year, over $250. You've got a few of the other cards that are over $100. Master Quiggy, Supreme Chancellor Valorum had an interestingly good year for some reason. Palpatine's over 100. Really, a lot of them are in that range, other than the Phantom Menace and the Infiltrator, which people just do not find particularly interesting, but the character cards do well. But yeah, obviously the real value in the Coruscant AI set is coming from those main 2 cards. And then in Theed as well, it looks like a lot of the value is coming from Queen Amidala and to some degree Darth Sidious. Mace does pretty well as well, actually, is breaking that $100 point. Boss Nass does particularly as like the next highest valued card in Theed. And I will say, like, I think the AI of Boss Nass is a particularly cool AI relative to the non-AI version. And so I don't know if that has something to do with it. If you look at some of the others, they're just like, their AIs are just not that much cooler than their non-AIs.
Well, Chancellor Valorum, I'm part of the Chancellor Valorum Apologist Society, so there's a little revisionists. He's kind of having a moment right now.
Yes, like, clearly.
He was a great bureaucrat.
How much of this data comes from you, Matt?
Just I've been hoarding them. No, I think there's also an intersection here. I remember like Natalie Portman doesn't sign very much stuff, and she was signing stuff I think in 2022 or 3, and there was kind of a rush to get the cards for the sake of getting her to sign the AI version. So I think that like there are intersections, right? Like all these other people are either robots or dead, or no one really wants Captain Panaka, but like Natalie Portman, that's a pretty cool signature.
Yeah. So that's the Theed AIs. Moving into the our ultra rares, which is where we end. The DS2 ultra rares, looking over the last 5 years, they're a steady increase since 2019, where they were selling for a little over 100. They're at say 120 and 110 or 130, 120, something like that for Luke and Emp. They peaked close to 240 and 220, and they've dropped a little under 200 recently, which is, a drop, but, the fact that they're still, pushing close to 200 is still, that's still, they're still doing well. Let's put it that way.
I think there's partially love the PC, but the PC did introduce a virtualized version, which was
correct, yeah,
just slightly worse. And so I think there was maybe some people that were playing with these cards in decks because they're incredibly good in decks that maybe just swapped out for the virtual one and took a $200 payout, which is great. Great for them.
Yeah. No, I think that's in some ways a fair trade, right? The PC is a difficult job of balancing, keeping players engaged and making cards accessible, but also with respect, thinking about collectors not losing their money. Like that's a difficult a thread they have to.
And I don't know. You also want to make the virtual card worth it, so you need to make it good.
Yeah,
but make it
totally.
like slightly less good.
But anyway, so that's where our DS2 Ultra Rares are. And these, again, I have tons and tons of data on these compared to any of my other singles, right? So this sample size is quite robust. Looking at the foil Ultra Rares, Luke is sitting at around 100 these days, Vader at around 130 or so. Vader really peaked hard in 2022 at, 225 or so, and has come down quite a bit since then. But otherwise, like, it's interesting why Vader shot up so much in 2022 compared to how much Luke shot up. But otherwise, the data looks kind of similar for these two cards.
Yeah.
I mean, Vader just is a cooler looking card. So there's that.
Yeah, I think I think the Vader is just maybe cooler, more iconic, more gradable. I don't know. I think the Ref 1 Ultra Rare, for some reason, they just don't really do it for me. Maybe because I don't really like Premiere. And that's my hot take. I don't love Premiere. I think Premiere is kind of janky. Give me Death Star 2 all day, right? Like that's like the fun step for me.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Death Star 2, here are the Ref 2 Ultra Rare foils. Which, I have data on Luke and Emperor from 2019 and 2020, but I wasn't tracking the other ones. And obviously those skyrocketed, and in part because they were just so undervalued. I mean, pre-pandemic, these foil cards were selling for lower than their non-foil counterparts. And so Luke and Emperor were selling for like 120 and 110 or whatever that is respectively. They skyrocketed. Luke peaked at like 375, Emperor peaked at like 350. They're both down to about 260 over the last year, which is a bit of a significant hit for them. Lord Vader also peaked close to 200, now at around whatever it is, 125, 130. Mara Jade has remained roughly consistent over the same period of time.
I mean, all these are very good playable cards. That's one thing I'll say. Like in all retro form, or even like open, like these are all still playable. Like maybe you put in the virtual Mara, but they're all still good. But I do think Mara Jade is the least cool of the four of them, right? And really, when it comes down to a lot of it, is just like the coolness factor. Do people think it's cool? Which I think is a perfect segue into our next slide, which is what is the card that's worth the most? It's the coolest one, right?
I mean, it just blows the rest out of the water, right? You're looking at Quiggy and I mean, if you look at, by the way, these four cards have also remained kind of consistent since they shot up in 2021. Quiggy and 3PO sitting at around 220, or no, actually, wait, what are the numbers I'm looking at? They're probably more in the 240, 250 range. P59 had a bold start in 2021, but now is in the 300 range. But yeah, Darth Maul Young Apprentice is just consistently selling for over $700, which is just so massively impressive.
His longevity there, it's just like, nope, there's some guy that's like, floor price for me is $700. But so that's been the one, I think, consistent marker throughout like my entire time hanging out in this game the last 5 years. I'm like, yeah, this is just a valuable card. It's always been valuable, and everybody, you tried selling one for $600, it would sell very quickly, right? And
that's absolutely right. And as you say, like these are all the same rarity, right? So the coolness factor goes a long way here. But this is also what I mentioned before. I mean, you total these up, you're looking at 14 or 1500 or whatever it is. If a Ref 3 set is selling for 2K, are the rest of the cards worth, what are the rest of the cards worth? And it does seem like there's a lot of cool cards, a lot of cool super rare foils in Ref 3. There's a lot of like AI foils that I think sell for quite a bit. So, this set coming down at 2K or below seems, again, a good deal to me, as does this one under 1,000. But anyway, looking at like the overall numbers again, this is what we've got now, right? So from a master set from its early days of 5K in 2029 to almost 4.5K right now, with a little bit of a drop recently from the foil sets, and this is sort of the state of the market over the last year.
So I'm going to end this video with sort of prediction for 2025. I think 2025 is going to be very similar to 2021, where there's stupid money. There's just people getting rich off crypto. There's people getting rich off of meme stocks. There's like speculation on the Fed lowering interest rate. There's like speculation broadly, which will lead collectibles to follow. Where there's dumb money, there's people buying, collectibles. Just to be honest, like I am dumb money as well, right? But I think that you'll see a trend there where people will have disposable income because they got rich off of a meme coin or something, and well, not rich, but they got like $2,000 they never thought they would have, and suddenly they're like, oh, what hobby should I get into, or what thing have I always wanted to buy? And this is just
well, if you're out there watching and Matt is correct, buy your sets now and dig out your sets for sale soon.
I'm happy to put a pin in this and come back in 1 year. Like I was wrong. 2025 was dog shit. It was terrible for everyone. Everyone suffered.
This is good. I like this, Matt. For future years, we should start each New Year's video with the last minute of the previous year's video, where you say all the crazy predictions.
We'll also see if January to March of this year kind of also continues that, like, hey, everyone's inside. There's a higher volume, higher prices, and if that follows the same trend. So we'll see what happens. Greg, any final thoughts here as we wrap up?
No. Thanks for doing these with me, Matt. Thanks for watching, folks. I really enjoy putting together the charts and tracking the data. So it makes it even nicer. I do it for myself anyway, but it makes it even nicer that people are interested in it.
So I just want to close by saying I think it's just so fascinating to me that this game has such a robust market and consistency. We're just tracking eBay. Obviously, there's private sales. There's all sorts of other places that if you probably took that, it would double the volume of sets being sold, whether it's on Facebook or Reddit, Discord. There's lots of places that people selling stuff. This is just eBay data. But I want to say, for a game that's been out of print for nearly 25 years now, there is such a robust and consistent market that I think it says a lot about the people as well as the game and sort of its longevity. And I'm getting cheesy here, but like I think to me it's just fascinating that we have this data. And props to you for keeping this going for 5 years now. So we hope to be doing this. Man, if I'm doing this in 5 years, I don't know. Someone could shake me, but we hope to be doing this for a long time.
We'll see if the spreadsheet is still under my control at that point, or whether I've passed it off to some dupe.
I want to be a 70-year-old man on like whatever YouTube looks like in 30 years.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, thanks for hanging out, everybody. This is a lot of fun. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll be back with more videos, but that's all the time we have. We'll catch you later.
See you, folks.